You spent 15 plus years of your life competing in athletics, and that's the main reason why it's so hard for you to be in the best shape of your life now. Let me explain. Since you were 3 to 6 years old, you've always been competing in sports. And now that you've completed college athletics, you're no longer a full time athlete. And figuring out how to be in the best shape of your life while managing a job, family, stressors, vacations, getting sick, kids, all of those things, it can be difficult to understand exactly how that fits into your life. And I want to talk about how that competitive drive that you've had has been the main thing that's holding you back now. I competed in sports since I was 6 years old. I graduated college in 2022 after spending 4 years competing in college swimming. I went straight into college coaching. I spent a year as an assistant coach, then 4 years as a Division II head coach, then 1 year as an assistant at the Division I level, and then 3 years as the associate head coach for swimming at University of Pittsburgh. Throughout this entire time, I tried pretty much everything to be in the best shape of my life. I tried triathlons, I tried marathons, I tried CrossFit, I tried continuing to swim, doing masters, and I tried even after finishing up a 12 to 14 hour workday, trying to go to a gym just to get a 2 hour workout in. And all of these things over the course of 9 years, I was never in the best shape of my life. I was never as fit as I was when I was an athlete. I never had the same confidence that I had when I was an athlete. I never felt the same level of athleticism or competitiveness that I felt then. And I kept trying to replace it. Now, part of this is staying in that athletics bubble. If you listen to any of my last podcasts, you know that I believe in this athletics bubble where as an athlete, there's athletics, there's academics, and then there's social. And you can do two of those three really well. As an athlete, social pretty much gets pushed off to the side because you need to focus on your time as an athlete. You only get so many years competing and then it's all over. And so why would you not devote yourself fully to that? The problem of that is we develop this competitiveness where it becomes a part of who we are. And I carried that straight from my time as an athlete straight into college coaching. And while I was in that world, you are constantly feeding that mindset to your athletes. And it's hard for that to stay separate from how I actually need to approach health for myself. And so I would meal prep on the weekends. I would eat chicken, rice, and broccoli almost for every meal. I would fit in a workout in the middle of the day. I would count my macros. I would finish up my workday and I would go straight to the gym just to find more time to work out. And even taking like recruiting calls in the middle of a workout just because I thought that grind mentality was exactly what would make me successful. And as I looked back, my last year in college athletics, I realized I had no free time. I was not happy. I had all this competitive drive and nowhere to put it. I was in a worse spot in every area of my life, except for the fact that I had met my beautiful wife and we were 2 years married at the time. But nothing was going the way I wanted to go. And I was no closer to where I wanted to be. I was 32 at the time. So I left coaching and I told myself I was done being in that competitive world. I mean, I had spent 4 years at the Division I level expecting a lot of myself. And so my plan was to get away from that, to slow down, build something different. And very quickly, I realized that that competitive drive had to go somewhere. And so I knew I was going to start a business. I wanted to do this thing for former athletes. And we had so many alumni coming back where they were all talking about kind of doing the same thing in terms of like not really knowing how to approach their health. And I thought this is a problem that I'm uniquely qualified to solve because I was both a college athlete, I coached in college athletics, and I understand the nature of building a team that supports people in a way where they actually feel cared for. And so that's what we decided to do. Well, throughout that process, this competitive drive keeps showing up. And I think like I have to go all in on this. And most people, when they start a business, they started on the side where they have a full time job. I quit my job. I pulled out my retirement. I moved my family to Ohio away from where we had lived the entire time we had been married and basically said, we're going all in on making this happen. Like literally put every ounce I had into it, just like I did when I was an athlete. And we obviously want to make sure we put out a great program and something that actually made a difference in people's lives. And so we spent all of this time building this team, building the structure before we ever made any money. And this is so much so that I believed in to the point where I literally did a handyman business on the side just to make ends meet while we built up the business. And I found myself very quickly like going through this phase where I slowed down for a few months, but then I was like, all right, like let's get back to it. This competitive drive wants to come out. I'm used to living this way. And so I would wake up at 4:30 in the morning and start working on the business and do all this handyman work and then finish up the handyman stuff and then go straight into building this business. And all the while, I had everything on the line. Like literally every ounce of money we had went into the business, um, cutting back in other areas, just doing anything I can to like fit into this world. And I realized that very quickly, if I'm going to help other athletes do this, I need to do this with myself. And so there was a period where I'd like gotten in good shape and I got back out of shape and I was trying to figure out like what the right approach for me was. And I realized like I can literally do what we're going to do for our clients for myself. And that's a little bit what we're going to talk about, but more importantly, what that competitive drive that led me to that place both stopped me from doing and allowed me to do at the same time. I would only sleep 4 hours a night, and I would call that discipline. The left that world, but the world hadn't left me. That was a part of who I was. And so what I want to do is I want to define for us what that competitive drive actually looks like and that thing inside you that was literally built to compete, because for 15 years of your life at a minimum, you are focused on winning. You're focused on being the best version of yourself you can be. You're focused on giving 100% to athletics and academics and that being it. And you graduate, suddenly it's over. That scoreboard, that metric that you were graded by your entire life goes away. But the reality is that life doesn't just leave you. It's not one of those things where that life doesn't just leave you. You don't just go finish your last competition and think, okay, well, now I know how to handle life for a normal person. And no one warns you about this gap between who you are as an athlete and who you will be as a real person. Sometimes they'll warn you about the identity loss or your body changing, or that you won't be the same person that you were before, or that it's really difficult to stay in that level of shape. They'll tell you all of these superficial things around how to actually be at your best. And the reality of that is, yes, you no longer have that component, but it's way deeper than that and affects you way more, because your entire mentality that you grew up with, the entire mentality that you had as an athlete, lives with you forever. And so you don't just give that away or stop using that when you're an athlete. You're looking for something to do. And that energy, that competitive drive has to be directed somewhere, because it's built into who we are. So where it goes when you don't actually choose that direction, if you don't pick, it kind of picks for you. You won't notice it until it's too late. For me personally, it went almost directly into master swimming. I joined a team where the coaches all swam every day. I was training, I was a sprinter. I hated long distance workouts, but I would do that because that's what they did. And that's the world I thought I had to live in. And I would do some workouts on my own. I remember getting shamed for doing a sprint workout when they were doing distance, because they were all distance people. But that was also what I loved. And so within 3 months of graduating, I was going faster than I did when I was an athlete. But I was also living almost more like an athlete than I did when I was an athlete. Everything went towards that, because I thought, well, if I'm going to be this amazing elite level coach, then I have to live this world as well. And so I tried that at first. I went swimming. The season got started, got stressful. I realized I had to have some separation. And so I went straight into CrossFit. And this has to be the thing that's going to work for me. And so I tried CrossFit for a while. My injuries were adding up. I was even more fatigued and stressed and broken down than I thought I would be before. And to back up just for a second, it wasn't like this just started when I got a full-time job. As soon as I finished my last competition in college, I signed up for a Tough Mudder. I signed up for triathlons, and I started training for them almost immediately. Within a month of finishing my last competition, I had already done a triathlon and a Tough Mudder, thinking that this was the world that I had to just be a part of for the rest of my life. So flash back to finishing up my time as a Division II head coach, still was doing CrossFit at the time, went in Division I athletics, where they tell you that like you have all the support staff, things are going to be easier. The reality is you work more hours and you do more, and you're appreciated even less because the standards are that much higher and they're that much more superficial. So I go in this world where, again, I'm trying to feed this mentality into our athletes. And we had more and more alumni coming back going through the exact same issues, talking about how, oh, yeah, like I can't find time to swim anymore, or I can't find time to train like I used to. And they're all going into CrossFit, triathlons, five, Orange Theory, Burn Boot Camp, Barry's Boot Camp. Like they're all trying these really intense things to fill that gap. Then there's the group that takes it to another extreme and goes into bodybuilding, saying, well, that's just going to be that same thing that I've always done my entire life. And what they're not recognizing is that's that competitive drive that we've talked about going into these areas and just replacing what we've already done. We're not finding a way to redirect it that benefits our life. We're literally just replacing what we've already done. The most common thing we see is people will spend the first 3 to 5 years just finding that thing that will replace it. The thing that makes them wake up on a Saturday morning, or the thing that makes them not take time off, because they don't even know what to do with that time off. So they'll replace it with running clubs, they'll replace it with group fitness classes, they'll replace it with becoming a marathoner or ultra runner or something along those like super strict lines. And you can't blame people for going into those areas. The reality is that they are able to see the best of everyone else's life on Instagram or what their teammates are doing. They don't measure themselves against like people that are in their same situation. They measure themselves against the person that's doing the best or what looks like the best based on what they see. And that can even be against people they don't even like. So they will see on social media another person is using CrossFit to get in shape or another person's using F5. And the people that you see posting about it on Instagram are the ones that either are handling it the best or they're in a space where that's the only thing they're focusing on outside of work. And so they're just keeping the buckets the same. They're keeping a fitness bucket, they're keeping a job bucket, and then nothing else is actually being fulfilled. And this works for a little while for some people, but it doesn't work for everyone. So they think that those routes they see other people doing, or fitness influencers, or the people preaching like this one way is the only way to go about it, that is the new standard that they have to meet. And that's what they should expect of themselves. And they start to view themselves as failures when they see, oh, well, this person's doing well with CrossFit, but I'm not doing well with it. Why is it not working for me? But they don't see all the stories behind that because all we see on social media is this super polished version of what everything looks like. And if you'll notice, if you look through, I post over 1,000 times on Instagram. I very rarely am posting the polished thing because that's not what life actually looks like. And if that's our perception of what life looks like, then we're never going to meet that standard. And so we have to actually shift around like, okay, what does my life look like? What's required of me on a daily basis? And then instead of saying we're going to sacrifice some of those things to be able to be in the best shape of our life, how do we build it around? And that's the biggest mentality is like, if you start and your life looks like this, but you think that the way you want to actually look and feel looks like this. So you just like think, all right, I'm going to adapt to fully doing that way. You have no shot of maintaining that. But if you look at, okay, like here's everything my life requires of me, I'm going to build the thing that's most convenient to do it in the path surrounding this, then you're more likely to be successful and you're more likely to stick to it and actually get the results that you want from it. But when you're taught as a kid, literally a 6 year old, doing drills that the point is to do it perfectly and that you have to do it repetitively until you get it right, like our inward mentality is always going to be critiquing everything that we do, expecting ourselves that we aren't meeting the standard. And that is a world that's really difficult to live in. It's a world that's great in athletics. There's a reason why you see all of these people performing so well in sports because that standard has been raised every single day and technology gets better and coaching it gets better and all of those programs actually improve. But what it leaves behind is someone that has this unrealistic expectation of what it actually takes on a daily basis to do this. And I talk about all this as if none of it relates to me. But the reality is, like, I can talk about this because this is what I went through. I went through the process of like graduating, finishing my last competition and diving straight in triathlons and marathons and and tough mudders, all this really strict stuff. And then I went straight into a job that expected a lot of me. And I was one that would sacrifice everything. I remember we had a leak in our pool, and the leak would drain the pool down to where like we couldn't have morning practice. So I started spending the night at the pool, getting there like 2 a.m. and just filling the water, making sure the level was right so that we could train in the morning. And the athletic department didn't pay me extra for that. No one thanked me for that. The team didn't even know about it. I'm just like doing these sacrifices for no reason. And it made no sense. At the end of the day, look back, I did all of these things, sacrificed my life for other people. I never got any sort of appreciation for it. And that's not from a place of like being spiteful. It's more so a lesson learned from me that you cannot give up your life. You cannot give up the things that are important for you just to be able to achieve something in those areas. And there's a place in a time to be sacrificing. But the reality is when it comes down to your health and your fitness and the way that you feel, that's not an area where you should ever sacrifice for your job or for what you do. Now, that engine, that competitive drive can be fed into your career within the bounds of what's acceptable. Me working hard and like designing a really good program, making sure I'm there for athletes and all those things, like those things are acceptable. Me being at the pool 2 a.m., making sure the water level is right so we can actually train at 5 a.m., like that's something I never should have done or had as the standard. But when I was built to sacrifice, that's the thing I'm going to rely upon when things get really hard. when we were athletes, the gap was clear. Like we had a deadline of this was the expectation. This is what the athletic department, this is what the team, this is what the coaches, this is what the teammates expect from me. And this is what I'm going to meet every single day. Now, in real life, the gap looks nothing like that. There's no true deadline to be in good shape. There's no reward for it other than the things that you actually feel when you're already there, meaning better energy, more confidence, showing up every day, being able to be more social, being able to live life more fully. But those things don't reward a medal. There's not someone at the end of the day recommending you as an All American or an NCAA championship or getting a trophy. Like those are just things that are for you. And so it's easy for that to be put on the back burner when you think of these other achievements in life, like making more money or anything along those lines that's going to allow you to like be a little bit more superficial with the ways that you approach it. So with real life having such a fuzzy version of that goal, it will ultimately eat into whatever's in front of it instead of fitness, whether it's more sleep, your relationships, sense of actually achieving things in your job. I want to relate this to both people that are within that 3 to 5 year of graduating, but also people that have been removed even more because there's a big mindset shift that happens throughout this process. You first graduate from your sport, you find something to replace it immediately. You're like, okay, this has to fill the gap of what I did within my team and my teammates and this intensity that I'm used to having. Then you go through this phase of realizing, like, okay, well, like maybe this isn't possible for me because of all these things I have to do and I'm a failure. Then you go through realizing like you're in such pain that you actually want to focus on it again. But now we're at the point where we don't have confidence that we can actually do it because we failed at it so many times. And so we just keep trying to look for the new thing or replace the thing that we've done in the past with this new way of go about it. And we're constantly wondering which of these routes is the right way for me to go. Well, the problem is we've had coaches telling us the exact way to go about this since we were kids. They've always dedicated to that path. And so we have this ego or this arrogance around the fact that we should know how to do all of these things because we grew up around it. But the reality is all of that stuff was based around performance. All of that stuff was around competing at a really high level and it was dedicated and tailored to exactly what you needed at that time. So how is anything actually going to fit that gap? That's where the reframe around the way we go about it actually is incredibly important. And so we don't need to kill that competitive drive. And why would we want to? Because that makes us who we are. But we want to give ourselves a standard to hold ourselves to that is not related to anyone else's standard and not related to any type of scoreboards. It actually has to be something that's very internal and for you specifically. And that's something that I have benefited the most from. And I think our clients have as well, is recognizing like the standard that you have now is completely different than the standard you had when you were an athlete. You still have to hold yourself to that standard, but it doesn't have to be built in a way where it inhibits you to enjoy other parts of your life. So competing within that version of me that allows me to actually enjoy my life, that's something that I actually benefit from. I still compete in trying to be the best person to help former college athletes be in the best shape of their life. I still compete with wanting to golf and be really good and beat the people that I'm with. And I still compete transparently. Like I really want to be confident in the way I feel every single day. I also really want to compete in the mindset of like, I want to be around for my grandkids and be able to move with them and to play with them and to enjoy my life. The only way I'm going to do that is if I start right now and not putting it off. So when I have to decide whether or not I'm going to work out or I'm going to do something else, you have to be able to step back and say, like, okay, I can take this hour to do yard work, or I can take this hour to make sure that I'm around for the rest of my life in a happy and healthy way. And those are the moments where it's like, yeah, that competitive drive is going to lean us towards doing the thing that sacrifices. But in reality, the thing that benefits us actually benefits everyone else around us that much more. So it has to be one of those things that's a non negotiable. Now, transparently for me, I work out 3 to 4 days a week for 30 to 40 minutes. My cardio is walking with my daughter and that one golf day that I do during the week. Like that's the way I work out now. And it works great. Like I'm in the best shape of my life. I have more energy than I had in the past. And it's something that I can actually maintain every week, regardless of what things looks like. And so there's a couple principles that I use in terms of how I actually make sure that happens every single week. First, I set aside a block every single day that I'm going to work out in. And there are weeks where everything runs super smooth and I do my workout and I go through kind of a rotation where I get to a day and like, there's actually nothing I have to do during this workout today. And I just go do something just to move and be active because I have the time to do it. Then there's the weeks where of the 7 days that I have something planned, something's popped up on 4 of them, which if you were to take that and put it into a structure where like you only planned out 4 days, like I would not work out at all. But because I block out a slot every single day, as those things pop up, Like, cool, I still get 3 or 4 workouts in during the week. And because that's my standard, not working out 7 days a week, like I meet the standard every week in a way that's actually sustainable for me. And so it's not that you have to accept that you can't do what you used to. We have to accept that you don't need the same things you used to be in the same shape that you used to. And you also have to accept that you are not going to have that time because you don't have the ability to do that. And the further you get removed from athletics, the harder it is to fit in those times. It's also harder to believe in yourself that you actually can get in that shape because of what you expect it to look like. Our perception is it takes 20 hours a week. Our perception is there has to be a lot of sacrifice involved. And our perception is that you are doing a good thing when you sacrifice your personal well being for those around you. But the flip side of that is a short term sacrifice, not actually providing them with more time with you as you're older because you put your health first now. So there's a balance there. Obviously, you can't just give up all of your time with your family, but you have to take time for yourself. So that way you prolong the time you actually have with your loved ones and you're actually able to enjoy your life to the fullest. So it's not about saying 3 months from now, I want to be able to bench 325 pounds or that you want to be able to run a marathon. Like we hear a lot of these goals on calls. And the very first question I ask is, why do you want to do that? If you're like, I want to run 4 days a week and I want to be able to do this half marathon in 6 weeks. And I was like, why? Like, why do you want to do that? Like, well, I know that'll help me. I'll be closer to being in good shape. So you don't actually care about running or you don't care about swimming. You care about being closer to the best shape you want to be in. So what if it didn't have to take you that time? Can you go 4 weeks without skipping 3 to 4 workouts a week? Can you go 4 weeks staying consistent with eating reasonable 80% of the time? Can you go 4 weeks of going to bed at a decent time most of the nights? We use a lot of words like most or 80% of the time or consistent versus ever thinking about being at this 100% line because life's never a linear thing where we have all this time that we can devote to doing one thing. Every single day looks different. Every single week looks different. Other stressors are going to pop up. If we set that expectation, we may be able to do something for 3 weeks to 4 weeks. There's no shot we can do it for the next 30 years. And that's what I actually care about. It's like, what can you maintain for the rest of your life so you get the most out of your life versus what can you do for 3 months and then never do again? So in all, athletes, we are built with this competitive drive and actually have this stick right here, which like this reminds me so much of why that competitive drive is how like who I am. Because I remember days where like we would literally hold this thing and we would just like kick. And the whole point was just like destroying our legs until we couldn't move anymore. And this thing like literally taught me to like think I have to give every ounce I have. And that mentality is so burned into me that like you can see this thing's like not even straight anymore. It's like warped. But the whole point behind this and the reason I keep this as a reminder is I'm capable of doing that, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I can't, that I have to do that. So if I can land at 70% of like what this looks like, then I'm going to be in the best shape of my life. And the one shift that has to happen around that competitive mindset is recognizing that the way we trained wasn't to be healthy. The way we trained was to perform at our best. And those are two completely different things. So redirect that competitive energy into where it serves you now, not where you think it serves you because of what you've been taught to know. So where does it fit and where does it not fit? Because I want you to actually leave this with a tangible thing of like, okay, like this is the way to actually go about it that's going to work for me. Where does it not fit first? It does not fit with spending your entire Sundays meal prepping a ton of meals. It does not fit with training 2 hours a day when you have a full-time job and a family and a social life. It does not fit into sacrificing every single day to be able to train. It does not fit if it takes away all of your free time. And it does not fit if it pulls you away from your family or your job or getting sleep. Like sleep is one of the most important things. We'll see people sacrifice sleep just so they can get a 2 hour training session in. Like that's only going to move them backwards, which if they're trying to compete, like there's someone who still has that burning desire to compete at a high level, sure, go do that. But if we're talking about being fit for your entire life, that is not a place where you sacrifice sleep just to get that competitive greatness out of it. There's a big difference between in the best shape of your life, being healthy and happy and confident and being competitively great. And we have to be able to recognize those two differences. So where does it actually fit? Fits into our job or for me, business, parenting, which carefully, I say that because you see so many people sacrificing time with their loved ones to be able to do this long training session. There has to be a balance there. My wife and I trade off workouts and it's usually like the thing that's going to take the least amount of time away from our kids. For example, if I know she's going to be taking a nap with our daughter, and I could be working or doing something else. I'm like, all right, I'm going to get my workout in, check that box so it's done. Then she wakes up and like, I've already had my work done. I've already had my workout done and I can spend time with them. Like that's the way it should be done versus, okay, well, yeah, every day at 4 o'clock, I'm going to be gone till 6:30 because I'm hitting a 2 hour training session. Like our job as a parent is to be present and to be able to actually be the best parent we can be to lead them through life in a way that they can enjoy and feel fulfilled. The only way to do that is give them all the love in the world and show them that we're there. So to do that, we have to actually be there, which means not spending 2 hours a day working out. Now, we are used to having an opponent in sports. We're used to having a scoreboard to compete against, a clock to run against. We're used to having some sort of reward. We're used to having this timeline as a season. And so we're used to doing things for a short period of time, thinking like, okay, I'm going to lock in for this 2 months to get in this shape. We have to completely get rid of that because like seasons of life happen, but we don't need seasons of training in our life now. We just need something that's going to stay fairly level on the grand scheme of things throughout life as a whole, because the reward no longer is a medal. Like the reward literally is in being happy, healthy, and confident for the rest of your life. And that's very different than earning a trophy. Things to watch out for if you are someone that's worried about your competitive drive stepping into areas where it shouldn't necessarily belong. And that's if it's pulling away from your friendships, if it's pulling away from your marriage, and you're trying to replicate or you're doing something similar to what you did when you were an athlete. Like that's the easiest way to put it. Like, are you giving up things that are important to you to make this happen on the scheme of like you're actually not around or those areas are struggling because of it? That's never the way it should work. And we see a lot of people where like one person is super bought in. They're like, yeah, like let's figure out this health. Let's figure out the way to feel this way. And the other person's not bought in. Like that's something you kind of have to look at. And like if someone loves you and they care about you and support you, they're going to want you to be your healthiest, which means they're going to take care of the kids, which like isn't a blessing while you go work out, or you're going to find a balance that's going to allow you to do both. But it's never going to be where like you just give up everything for that. And also worry, like you should never be competing with your spouse in terms of fitness. You should never be competing with your past self. Like you're losing the rest of your life if you are focused on different hours and different recovery plans and different responsibilities. That person like does not exist anymore. And that literally, like, I can say that because I sacrificed the first 2 years of my marriage being so dedicated to being a college coach and being the best I possibly could be in that world that, like, I'm grateful my wife wanted to stay with me, honestly. She was an absolute blessing during that phase, but I gave everything I had to. And I did that throughout my entire time in college athletics. So I hope this helps. Just remember that you don't have to match who you were then. You just have to match what life actually looks like for you now. And last thing I would say is just be okay with it being a little more boring than what you've done in the past, because the reality is like it's not going to be glamorous. It's not going to be one of those things where you like are sacrificing a ton or there's like all these glory moments. It's more about like doing the right thing consistently week over week that adds up to where you want to go versus it being this thing that's like, yeah, like I feel this way. If you do the boring stuff consistently, you will feel like an athlete again. But if you do the things where it's like I had a really intense workout and I couldn't walk for 3 days, like you're not going to feel like an athlete again. You're going to feel like what you're doing is actually not working. And so the three things that I would tell you if you were sitting across from me right now and you were deciding whether it's something that you need to focus on, first, pick the slow thing, pick the thing that you can be consistent with versus that intense workout. Real life pays out in years. And if you don't pick that on purpose, the loudest thing's always going to win. It's always going to be the F45 or the keto or the CrossFit workout or the marathon or the triathlon. Like it's got to be the thing that's right for you. And then stop asking yourself to be compared to what you did in the past. You're not training for a championship. You're training to still be doing this in 20 years. It's not a seasonal thing anymore. It's literally what can you do for life? And then focus on the people that are around you and make sure they support that world of who you are versus pulling away from it. And sometimes that's the friend that prefers to go out drinking, or that's the lazy person that complains a lot, or making sure that the people around you want to be happy and healthy as well. Like that's what you surround yourself by, because you are a product of your surroundings, whether you like it or not. And if you want that competitive drive and that mentality to come out, it has to be a holistic view of your entire life versus just focused in on competing or fitness as a whole. So I hope this helps. This comes out a lot in terms of just like thinking that you lose that competitive drive. We hear a lot of people say like, I'm not motivated like I used to be. Like you still have that competitive drive. That's a part of who you are. You will always have that. Now it's about just like, where does that fit into my life now, and pointing it into a direction that benefits not just your fitness, but benefits every part of your life. So when you pick a plan that's going to work for you, focus on the thing that's going to work for you for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years versus the thing that you can only do for 3 months. Remember that competitive drive that you have is never the problem. It's like one of the best things that we had and built into us as athletes. It's just making sure that we're giving that to the right areas throughout our life. I hope this helps. This is something that comes up often when I'm talking to former college athletes. And the big mindset shift that we have is that you've never lost that competitive edge. It's truly just figuring out like what the best way for you to go about it now is that's going to help you enjoy your life for the next 30 years versus a thing that you can do for 3 months. So if you liked it, please subscribe and share with a friend.